Well, I was raised in a Christian home ever since I was young, and so it's always been kind of like a routine in my life. I've always been praying, and I never really took it seriously until I was older and actually understood what it meant.
So I didn't really know if there was a specific prayer I should be saying. So I always was asking my parents if I should say this certain prayer, and I just didn't really know if there were certain words I should say or how to do it. So just a little bit confused at first, but as I grew older I started to understand it more.
When I first started praying, it was very routine. It was I pray before I eat, before I go to bed. And I'd say the same four things. It wasn't really talking to God, but as I've grown up and matured, it's become a lot more personal and more conversation with God.
Prayer, back in the old days of Uptown when they said prayer is something you want to be doing every day, all the time, I was like, there's no way you could ever do that. But it's you don't jump from praying once at a meal and then once before you go to bed to constantly having that mental conversation with God. You have to build it up over time and just have it build it up I'm sure you've heard the analogy of building it up like a muscle before.
Well, knowing that I can talk to the creator of the universe, the person who created me, is really amazing. It makes me feel like I can have a personal relationship with him, and it gives me more of a trusting foundation with him too, and believing that what he says will happen.
It's really brought me closer to him. It's just made it so I'm more comfortable speaking to him, and I pray more often now as I've gotten older and understood it more.
It made me feel like I could talk to him more, it strengthened it, and I'm talking to a best friend. I don't have to hide anything from him.
Prayer has changed my relationship with God. I've noticed that more recently especially, I've tried to pray more often and pray for longer, and then I stopped trying and it just kept going. Before I thought it would be impossible to come up with a 5-minute prayer, and now I'm spending an hour at night just talking with God about how my day went, thanking Him for everything that He's given me, sending up prayer requests.
It's really a good way to solidify it because you can't have a relationship without conversation, and it's if you're not praying to God, then God can communicate with us through His Word and through other means, but prayer is kind of our way to communicate back to Him. Prayer and worship are two ways that we can really indulge in a full relationship by talking back to God. Not talking back, but
It's definitely brought me closer to God. I feel like when I talk to God more, it calms me down and gets me through my day much easier, and I'm just a much happier person. He makes me feel like even if I'm going through something that's really, really rough, that I can pray for peace through what I'm going through, and that He can help me go through with peace, even if it's not getting completely better.
God has moved through prayer in many ways in my life. I always knew that God gives us, says yes to our prayers, says no, says later. And I always thought that I would want to hear a yes answer every time. But it wasn't until I asked for something and He said no, and I realized that worked out much better than I could have ever imagined. That God has a perfect plan. It's better than ours. And He moves our lives through His ideas and our requests.
The verse Jeremiah 29:12 says, "You will find me when you seek me with all your heart." And so I find that when I'm praying for things when I'm praying for friends going through hard times and they say that things are getting better or stuff like that, that's when I find that that was God doing that, even if they might not know it.
Through a lot of healing, both physically and spiritually in my family, I've had relatives who've been sick and they've been healed. But not just the big things too. There's been smaller things that other people would find insignificant or unimportant, and he's come through for me even then.